generations to come.
Welcome to another edition of the TDN Writers Room, presented by Keeneland. Bill Finley, our illustrious leader, is a bit under the weather this week, so you're stuck with me and Zoe, the TDN Writers Room exacta this week. Let's get the introductions out of the way. I'm Randy Moss with NBC Sports.
Zoe Campman here with First Racing at Saratoga, finally. Now, it took me a while to get here, guys. I broke down in St. George, Utah. Now, if you ever break down when you're on the road, I can picture no more picturesque place than St. George, Utah. It's absolutely beautiful, but it was 115 degrees. I think you might be able to see Doodle behind me, finally, because let's see, let's move this. Can you see the Doodle? There he is. There's
So
the Doodle.
Doodle was in the car with you?
Doodle was, well, of course, because that's why, like a maniac, I opted to drive across the country because Doodle didn't fly very well last year. So a couple of days in St. George, Utah. Note to self, do not break down on a holiday weekend because you feel like it'll be a lovely time to drive. If you need help on the road, you are not going to find anyone that comes and get you. Get the AAA premium package and not the one that'll tow you 7 miles. And don't drive a Jag because nobody can fix it. So my car's in Vegas, having a wonderful time. And I'm in Saratoga, looking forward to the rest of the meet. So there you have it.
So I know people are wondering, conceptually, you live in California.
Correct.
You were driving from California to Saratoga because you wanted your car.
And it was supposedly a little easier on Doodle. And I'm here all summer, and then I'll go to Keeneland right after, and then I'll drive back. So I actually just bought a car yesterday because I know that my car will probably stay in Vegas for quite some time. So we'll figure it out along the way.
You belong in the Pet Ownership Hall of Fame. So that is to drive from California to Saratoga because it's easier on Doodle is next level pet care.
Oh, come on, Randy. You would do that too. You'd do that for Lucy.
I would do it for Lucy. You're right. Or my daughter, Hallie. All right. So Bill's not with us, but he left us with a handy dandy format of all the topics that he thought. We're going to add a couple in here as well. But let's start off with the Haskell. It's the big race this weekend. I'll be there for NBC Sports, leaving on Thursday. The race is obviously on Saturday. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of the Haskell, I want to talk a little bit about just Monmouth Park in general. How much time have you gotten a chance to spend at Monmouth over the years?
I really haven't, to be honest. I went there for one weekend, and I went as a fan with a friend of mine. And you know what? It really struck me, the picnic atmosphere. After spending a lot of years at Arlington Park, every Friday we'd have party in the park. And Monmouth was really the only place that I feel like I've experienced the same thing. Now, a lot of people have only been to Monmouth at that disastrous 2007 Breeders' Cup when it just rained and rained and rained. But really, people don't realize what a great place it is. It's right next to the beach, and it's like family fun friendly. You can just grab a beer and go sit on the grass and put your kids on the playground. It's a really fun place to be.
I think my first trip to Monmouth was in 2000. I started with ESPN in 1999, and we did the Haskell every year starting in 2000. So I've been there almost every year since then, just for the Haskell. I've never really experienced Monmouth Park other than the 2007 Breeders' Cup and the Haskell. But those particular days, I look forward to going to Monmouth Park for Haskell weekend as much as any trip all year long. It's an old school racetrack, okay, which I love. It's extremely well maintained. But more than anything else, I mean, you get a huge crowd, obviously, for the Haskell. I mean, the young people come pouring in from off the beach. The demographics are fantastic. But the people there are so friendly and they're so into racing. When we had our ESPN and then NBC, when we had back in the day when we would actually set up our set, you know all about TV sets, when we would set up our set on the apron, right in the middle of all the people. It was unbelievable, the number of fans that would just pack in around the set and want
you
to
felt
talk.
like a movie star.
It was unbelievable. Yeah, me. Can you imagine that? Just packed in around the set and wanting to talk about horses and talk about everything. Yeah, it was just so cool, the people and their enthusiasm for the sport. And it's just a trip that I really, really look forward to making every year.
Well, it doesn't look like it's going to be an oversubscribed field thus far. Fierceness, Tuskin Sky, Dornoch, Timberlake, Sea Streak, maybe. And then this morning at Saratoga, Caesar Gray went and actually worked on the main track. There was a D. Wayne Lucas sighting on the main track. He usually works all his horses over there in Oklahoma, and he works Caesar Gray out there. And he just rolled along this morning, according to Clock and Mike Welch. I was not out there this morning, which is unfortunate. I was, it's my day off today. But it looks like he may go to the Haskell, but really I think Wayne wants to point towards the Jim Dandy. So we'll find out over the next couple of days. A reminder that we are recording this on Tuesday, so entries are not out yet for the Haskell. But I mean, if you're looking at the field as a whole and the real Fierceness shows up, I mean, he's got to be the one to beat. He's been working lights out. We'll hear from Todd Pletcher a little bit later on. He worked with Tuskin Sky, who's also in there, just a couple of works away, and absolutely put him to bed. Now, Tuskin Sky is supposed to go. I mean, who will be his main competition? Dornoch? But they're going to be like battling up there on the front end, and they're going to be draw dependent. Fierceness has only one way to go, and it seems like Dornoch pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. If you've clicked on this, as you pointed out, I mean, you'll know that we're talking to Todd Pletcher a little bit later. So that's definitely going to be one of the questions we have to ask him, really, is, I mean, you've got three horses with, you're right, Fierceness is pretty much got to go at this point, I think. I mean, based on what we've seen from him so far. Mindframe stalked in the Belmont, but he was only about a length and a half off the pace. Tuskin Sky, his best seems to be, up on the lead or stalking a little bit, like he was at the fairgrounds when he won the allowance race. Dornoch's got to go. Timberlake is always very aggressive early. Yeah. I mean, it looks like it could be a pretty fast-paced race, but I think the big question to ask Todd is with the Jim Dandy, also right there at Saratoga, why run all three of these horses if indeed that's what he's going to do against each other in the Haskell? It's kind of unusual.
Yeah, it really is. So we'll talk to him later. And I've got another one. Where's Bob? Like, Bob usually runs one in the Haskell. I should have reached out to him earlier and been like, where are your horses? Where's Bob?
Parenting must have had a setback. Muth apparently wasn't ready. So he announced with air quotes, that he was going to run Parenting in the Haskell. That was going to be his Haskell horse. And of course, Bob has practically owned the Haskell in those years that he sent a horse, which is most of the time. But then suddenly the word came out that Parenting was not going to be entered. So he must not have trained and have met the Bob Baffert Super Cherry seal of approval as he was getting him ready for the Haskell. We all know Bob flies by the seat of his pants in terms of, visuals and judging horses based on workouts and making last minute calls and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. So, but I mean, he just worked. So it looks like it's not going to be an oversubscribed field, but it will be a good one. And it will be interesting to see if Bob runs all of his. I can tell you one thing. I watched Dornoch work on the main track, and he worked in 47-4 on the outside of another horse who I can't remember the name of right now off the top of my head, but he looked as good as he's ever looked. So, everyone's tired of Danny's been bullish about him, and why not? Why not? He's proven him right, which is great. So he looks as good as he's ever looked. So he's definitely going to be in the mix, and it will be a draw-dependent race because there is a ton of speed, and you've got two horses in there that need the lead. How fast do they have to go?
At Monmouth, they can go pretty fast because it's sort of a speed-favoring racetrack compared to Saratoga, at least. Mindframe might get the trip, really. If Dornoch and Fierceness both go out together, Mindframe could be stalking right behind him and be in a good spot. Also on Saturday, at Saratoga, a couple of stakes races. There's the Lake George, but the Coaching Club American Oaks, we get to see a very short field, 5 horses. The entries are already out there and the past performances. But Torpedo Anna is going to be obviously probably a 1-5 or 2-5 favorite based on her wins in the Kentucky Oaks and most recently the Acorn, in which she beat Leslie's Rose, who looks like the toughest competition against her in the Coaching Club Oaks. You looking forward to seeing Torpedo Anna run again?
Oh, I am. I really am. And, you know, she worked just a couple of days ago over on the Oklahoma track. And I wandered over there at 7:30 because I've never seen her in person. I wasn't there for the Oaks. And I like to physically see horses because seeing them on TV and seeing them working is one thing. And you can get a different visual than you can when you see them in person. And she looked great. She worked right along with Gould's Gold. She went in 101 and 2, I believe, and galloped out like a champ. She looks as good as she's ever looked. And she is going to be extremely tough in there. And Kenny McPeak, all thumbs up for her going forward. She worked with Gould's Gold, who was last seen running in the Ohio Derby. He might well be pointed towards the Jim Dandy as well. So she's keeping good company in the mornings. Brian Hernandez was aboard her, so that's good to see. And she most definitely is the horse to beat, without question.
So when she wins the Acorn in her last start at Saratoga, right? So it wasn't the one-turn mile we're accustomed to. It's the same 1 1/8 distance as this. She was caught 4 wide into the first turn, right? Got a little ground loss there. A quick pace, and she's right up close to the pace, and then she draws off with authority and wins by 5 lengths. She got a 99 by her speed figure with a better trip, probably could have been a little higher than that, which puts her in the realm of the top 3-year-olds in general of either sex.
Yeah.
Right. And we know Kenny McPeak, and you know, we're not going to see Mystic Dan in the Travers. He hasn't bounced back out of the Triple Crown quite as quickly as Kenny hoped he would. So if Torpedo Anna wins impressively in the Coaching Club American Oaks, you'd have to think that McPeak will seriously consider running her against the boys in the Travers. And you know more about this than me. From what I've read, physically, Torpedo Anna is the kind of filly that you would consider running against the boys.
Yeah, she's not as big as I thought she would be, if I'm being honest. She does look like a filly. She's not this giant filly, but she's effortless. She gets over the ground oh so well. And, you know, you got to go with the horse for course angle. She won the Acorn so easily at Saratoga. She trains obviously on Oklahoma and not the main track, but she got over the main track like it was butter. So why not? I mean, what have you got to lose? And we know that Kenny likes a challenge, right? But Kenny doesn't like to be told what to do because people expect this now. So this is the other thing that you have to be careful with. It's Kenny's way or no way at all, or the highway. So I believe it's going to be day by day with Kenny as to where she goes. We have to get over this race first and see what happens.
So 5 are entered in the Coaching Club Oaks. Candied for Todd Pletcher, who won at Monmouth. Barbara Tina, a long shot for George Weaver. Torpedo Anna. Leslie's Rose, second in the Acorn for Todd. And Intricate, trained by Brendan Walsh. Now, we don't want to just focus on the East Coast because we have a huge event taking place in Southern California, of course. Opening weekend at Del Mar. I talked about how much I like Monmouth, how much I enjoy going to Monmouth. Saratoga, obviously spectacular. If I had to pick one racing day to be at in American racing, right? There's the Kentucky Derby. Okay. Love that. And the Triple Crown. All right. And there's the Breeders' Cup. That's 2 days, not 1 day. Other than that, opening day at Del Mar is like a spectacle, almost Kentucky Derby-ish on a smaller scale, beach vibe, Southern California type scale. I've only been to opening day at Del Mar one time, but it's seared in my memory as something that was really, really a lot of fun.
Well, the one thing you can guarantee, it's funny, I was talking to Barbara Banke just the other day. We were both queuing up for coffee at the Dunkin' Donuts stand, and it's hot. It's been like hotter than hell here in Saratoga, hot and humid. We haven't had the rain, thank goodness, but it's been hot. and we were talking about it. She basically just said, she's like, yeah, but Del Mar's weather is just so much better. Because it is. You can guarantee what kind of weather you're going to get. You're going to get mid-70s, a nice breeze coming off the ocean, and it's going to be beautiful weather. You're not going to be lashed with rain or anything like that. So you have a guarantee of the weather. You're close to the beach. People from the East Coast love to go in and go to the beach. I know when they had Del Mar Breeders' Cup, I've never seen so many pink Euros in my life because it was sunny and warm. All the Euros that brought horses over, got off the plane, went straight to the beach and just got third-degree burns because it's the middle of November and they couldn't believe it was warm and sunny. So opening day is a sight to behold. It always used to be on a Wednesday or a Thursday, but now they've pushed it to a Saturday for a weekend opener, which makes it even more packed. And I have done opening day a couple of times. One of the funnest things that I remember doing was riding the train down from basically Santa Anita. It's a couple of hops. You get on the train, you get on the Pacific coach liner and go all the way down there. They drop you off at Solana Beach. And then they have a fleet of open air double-decker buses that will pick you up from Solana Beach and take you to the racetrack. By the time we got there, I was like, this is the best thing ever. We're on a double-decker bus. We're going to Del Mar alongside the beach, and we got there. And yeah, the train ride home was a long train ride home, but it was a really fun day. So there'll be a lot of people looking forward. Opening weekend will be the Grade 2 San Clemente, which is oversubscribed, as well as the Oceanside, which has in the past been run in 2 divisions. The nominations are through the roof, so I'm not sure what they're going to do about that. Entries are not out yet, but it looks like it's going to be a super, super opening weekend.
So if you've never been to Del Mar, you need to go, anybody who's watching this. And let me give you just a little primer if you want to go to Del Mar. Right? There's nothing wrong with the fall meet at Del Mar, but if you've never been to Del Mar, go in the summer, right? In the summer meet. Make an early reservation, stay at La Berge, make some dinner reservations earlier, some great restaurants. When you get to Del Mar, it's always fantastic weather, right? Go to the track in the morning and watch the workouts. Come back, take a walk on the beach, rent a boogie board right there on the beach and spend about an hour and a half or 2 hours boogie boarding on Del Mar Beach. When you first get in the water, it'll be cold.
It's cold.
And then you'll adjust to it and it'll be just sensational. And then you spend the afternoon at the racetrack at Del Mar and then a lovely night out on the town. It's just a fantastic.
Don't forget, you have lunch at the Brigantine.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can miss. Right. You can maybe skip the first race and watch it there. They're overlooking the racetrack. So you go for lunch at the Brig, watch the first couple of races, and then you walk down to the racetrack.
Summer's an American race. Saratoga and Del Mar. Nothing wrong with that.
Aren't we lucky? And that's a nice segue from Del Mar to Keeneland. The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by Keeneland. The September sale runs from September the 9th to the 21st. I'll be driving there, trying not to break down. If you're wondering why you should attend, you only need to look at the Saratoga maiden races from the weekend. Kimchi Cat, Reynolds Channeled, Touch Catch all came out of the Keeneland September sale to go on and win coveted maiden races this past weekend. I'm sure we'll have some very nice maiden races at Del Mar that Keeneland grads will win as well. Also, Miss Justify won Saratoga's Wilton Stakes, and Twirling Queen remained undefeated with a win in the Coronation Cup at Woodbine. We'll be right back after this message from Keeneland.
At Keeneland, a horse will always be measured in hands. Hands that see, that sense, that speak. Hands that hold our sport to a higher standard. Not for our sake, but for theirs. For the love of the horse, for generations to come.
And this week's Fastest Horse of the Week is brought to you by Independence Hall, one of those fast sires at Windstar Farm. And Independence Hall has been looking forward to sponsoring this segment this week because he's very proud. He has some big news. Independence Hall's first yearling sold at Basig, tipped in July. He had 3 yearlings entered. All 3 sold for 6-figure prices. And how about this for analytics? There is a stat for the highest stud fee multiple among Kentucky stallions with 2 or more yearlings sold, right? Independence Hall's 14.83 times his stud fee. That is impressive. Independence Hall was impressive as a racehorse, a record-setting undefeated juvenile. He won the Grade 2 Fayette Stakes later in his career, and of course we wouldn't be talking about this without the fact that Independence Hall stands stud at WinStar Farm. Now, the fastest horse of the week. It happened on Sunday at Saratoga, the Quick Call Stakes. 5.5 furlongs on the Toif. And that was Star of Mystery, a 3-year-old filly. Star of Mystery, a 3-year-old filly, right? Running against the boys. Wins the Quick Call by a length and a half under Flavian Pratt with a Beyer speed figure of 106. Prior to that, Star of Mystery had run in the Jaipur on Belmont Stakes weekend, again against the boys, finished third in that race behind the sensational Cogburn, and bounces back with this big win for Godolphin. We've talked recently about how Appleby has been targeting Saratoga now with the string that he is campaigning full-time in the U.S. this year. He's got a murderer's row up there based at Saratoga. Well, this is salvo number 1. This is the first horse Godolphin and Charlie Appleby have run at Saratoga. Star of Mystery comes through and becomes the fastest horse of the week. Now, the segment that we all look forward to every week, our Green Group Guest of the Week, brought to you, of course, by the Green Group, a tax consulting and advisory firm specializing in the thoroughbred industry and in saving you money on your taxes. So we've been told we should call this part of the podcast, I've heard the Todd Pod, Todd on the pod with Todd. We got 14-time Saratoga training champion Todd Pletcher with us, graciously joining us. And I say graciously because before we get into the Haskell, I've seen you many times at Saratoga. All the owners want to run their horses at Saratoga. All the owners want to be at Saratoga and want you to pay attention to them. What is this month and a half like for someone with a stable like you at Saratoga?
It's Saratoga's a different animal than anywhere else we go. It can be relatively quiet on days like today, a dark day, and you can kind of not have a bunch of people hanging around, but there's nothing quite like sale week. You kind of would think, if you're an outsider, you might think, oh, Travers week is really, a crazy week at Saratoga, but it's really the week surrounding the yearling sale that is by far the most attended, and everybody wants to be out in the morning, see their horses train, and know what time they're going, and so it can be challenging at times to try to stay focused on what you're doing and training your horses. So it's great, to have that kind of enthusiasm and people out here, but at the same time, it can be distracting if you're not careful.
I'm so
when
racing
do you sleep,
centric.
Todd?
Yeah, it's crazy.
When do you sleep? Because, what time do you get to the barn? What's your schedule on an average day? You're obviously still at your barn now on a dark day where most people are revving up their boat and heading out to the lake. So what's a day look like for Todd Pletcher?
Well, so we have horses on the Oklahoma side, and then we have horses on the harness track side, and we sort of try to combine and have our sets meet one another at the same time on the track so we can watch them all train. So typically I'll show up at the Oklahoma track at 4:00 in the morning, go over kind of what we're doing for the day and get prepared to make entries. And of course, now you have to have the veterinarians examine every horse before they're entered. So we have to have those forms in place. So I'll spend about 45 minutes here, and then I'll go over to the harness track and spend about 30, 45 minutes looking through horses over there before we come back and get the first set. And then, once 5:30, 5:45, we hit the track, and it's pretty much training up until 10 o'clock. And then start to wrap up things, make some entries, then start to talk to my assistants and kind of going over what we got planned for the day and tomorrow and that sort of stuff.
Let's not forget turf works that go on till noon some days.
Yeah. We those are on Friday and Sunday generally. So yeah, those can delay your schedule quite a bit, depending on what time slot you draw. But yeah, we do some turf works, but once we kind of get a feel for if we think, a 2-year-old handles it or not, then we'll kind of focus on most of the training on the dirt.
So on sales week, do you also have to wedge in time to walk the sales grounds with bloodstock agents and look at horses, or do you pretty much hand that off to them?
Well, what most of my owners will do, they'll have somebody making a short list. So hopefully I can get away with looking at a condensed list. But yeah, I mean, I actually enjoy that part of it. I enjoy looking at yearlings. I think it's challenging. It's interesting. I enjoy that part of it. Unfortunately, at Saratoga, I just don't have the time to do as much of it or as good a job at it as I would like. So, for the September sale at Keeneland, that's all I do for the 5 or 6 days that I'm there. But, here we got so much going on with the races that I'll try to, on Monday, that morning of the sale, and Tuesday I'll try to catch up some, but and go over there sometimes in between races or what have you. But it's hard to look as much as I'd like.
Well, your record shows you're good at it. What do you enjoy the most about analyzing the yearlings when you look at them like that?
Well, I mean, it's trying to figure out, what makes one good. And, everyone sort of has their own idea, their own special taste type of horses that they like. And, one of the things that I really enjoyed about working for Wayne back, a long time ago now, but started for him in '89 and started coming to Saratoga. And one of the things that I got to do when I was his assistant was go over to Fasig-Tipton sales grounds and look at yearlings with him and pick his brain on, what he looked for and what he liked. And, and also did the same with my dad for a long time when I was younger. I remember going to the sales with him, maybe as early as when I was 11 or 12. And so just, you try to learn hopefully what a good horse looks like and moves like. And of course, most of the time you're probably wrong, but it's fun when you're right.
To this day, most people have a particular yearling that they've seen at the sale, and it's either turned out to be great or it's not been great, but it's one that you remember. Do you have one that you're like, oh man, I remember him as a yearling? Do you have one?
Malathat comes to mind. I love that filly at the sale, and I was having trouble. I knew she was going to be expensive. I was having trouble finding someone that was willing to step up and buy her. Ended up kind of putting together a deal where we had like 4 people that were gonna go in partnership, and then she ends up. We were actually bidders at $1 million. She went for $1.05 million to Shadwell, and then I was fortunate. Kieran McLaughlin decided that he was going to get the filly to train as a 2-year-old, and he had decided that he was going to retire, and so he was helpful in me getting the Shadwell account and ultimately getting that filly. And so yeah, she was one. Another horse that comes to mind is I remember Wayne and I looking at Unbridled Song as a yearling, and he was huge. And we looked at him and ultimately decided that he was going to be too big. And then I guess he showed up at Barrett's, and Wayne saw him again there. I wasn't at that sale, but at the 2-year-old training sale. And I remember him telling me, we were talking about, do you remember that really big gray colt? And he said, man, he flew, at Barrett's. And I think obviously him and a lot of people tried to buy him at that sale. And I think he ended up getting returned or whatever. And Ernie Paragallo kept him and turned out to be an absolute beast and great sire as well.
We could probably talk to you for an hour about ones that got away and fantastic stories and stuff like that. But let's segue to the Haskell. I think that's what everybody wants to hear about right now. The talk for weeks has been that you might run all three of your 3-year-olds right now that you're pointing for these big races: Mindframe, Fierceness, and Tuskin Sky. Where does that stand now as we tape this on Tuesday afternoon?
So as of right now, we're prepared to enter all three tomorrow, and we've been preparing all three as though they might run in the Haskell. Obviously, I don't really want to run Mindframe and Fierceness against one another. The tricky thing about it is for in this particular situation is the Haskell's a grade 1 and the Jim Dandy's a grade 2. Fierceness has already established his stallion value. He's champion 2-year-old. He's won the Florida Derby. He's a multiple grade 1 winner. Mindframe, on the other hand, is like on the verge of becoming a major stallion prospect. And to some degree, he's a stallion prospect already, but a grade 1 win for him is a big payday in terms of, his stallion value. So that's what we have to look at. And take, for example, on Saturday, we had Minty, we felt like cranked up and ready to go. And we come in the morning, he's got a temperature. So we have to be prepared as though we're going to run all three. And I think we'll enter tomorrow. We'll look at it, continue to monitor how, all three horses are training and make a decision.
If you decide not to run Mindframe against Fierceness, the most logical scenario then would be Fierceness in the Jim Dandy?
I think so. I think that would probably be the backup plan, yeah.
Interesting. Well, say all three of them go. How does the pace scenario work out with Dornoch in there?
Well, I mean, I think it's interesting because, Dornoch, I think now they've probably think that, their horse does his best running when he's involved. And if you look at the Kentucky Derby, he kind of got pinched back right away and didn't get that opportunity. And they rode him aggressively in the Belmont to make sure he got there. And so, I think the pace scenario could be similar to what we saw in the Belmont. If Fierceness is not in there, if Fierceness is in there, I think that's, makes a major change to the pace scenario.
So let's talk about all three horses individually here real quick. I suppose if you had a pecking order, and you might even not want to go there, having just been beaten a half length in the Belmont Stakes, Mindframe might even be number 1 and Fierceness number 2. But Mindframe first, okay? Wandered a little bit through the stretch of the Belmont. Inexperience, lost a little focus. How do you gauge that when you look ahead now to the Haskell?
Well, I mean, the one thing that we were concerned about going into the Belmont was, did he have enough seasoning experience to be ready to run in the Belmont against horses who had more experience? And I think, our concern turned out to be, what ultimately cost him, the race. By the same token, you have to be elated with the way he ran, and only his third start to do that was very impressive. At the same time, very frustrating to think that, maybe we let one get away. Very talented horse, he's trained very well since then. I think he has, the right to improve again with that race under his belt. And he's a May 13th foal. You would think time's on his side. The more experience he gets and the older he gets, hopefully the better he gets. But so we're excited about him and think a lot of him, and hopefully continues to do as well as he has, and maybe even improves a little.
And maybe Irad will be a little more ready for it this time when he gets the stretch at Monmouth.
Yeah, I mean, I think Irad will make some adjustments. And I don't blame Irad. The first time he used the left hand, he didn't do anything. He kept a straight course, and it was kind of the second time that I think, I don't know, he caught him off guard, or, it's just a natural reaction to it. But just, not only veered off course a little bit and cost himself a little bit of momentum, which who knows might have been the difference in the race. But hopefully now with that experience behind him and IRAD knows him that little bit better, that we can improve on that.
Talk to us about the progression you've seen from Fierceness. I've seen him galloping in the morning. He looks great. It seems like yourself and Kenny McPeak are going to the two veterans, both called Danny. Kenny's got Danny Ramsey and you've got Danny Wright, an English guy, a guy I've known for years. What has Danny meant to Fierceness? Because it's really cool that he's got a really good horse to get on now.
Yeah, he does. And, he's done a really good job with him. He gets along with him well. They're both pretty quiet. And, Fierceness is a very laid back horse in his gallops. And, it wasn't until, I guess almost a year ago now, not quite, sometime in late July last year, early August, he showed us all of a sudden, this horse that just kind of gallops around here off the bridle every day can really run. Danny's been breezing him since the Derby, and he's Johnny had worked him quite a bit leading into the Florida Derby and the Kentucky Derby, but because we've been up at Saratoga, Danny's been breezing, gets along with him really well. It's just, it's fun to watch when he breezes because he literally comes to the wire with Danny just standing up in the irons, basically just holding him together. And then you look down at your watch and you're like, wow, this horse is really rolling. They've gotten along really well. And so I'm happy, that Danny's been able to get on a horse like that.
So where I have to go now about Fierceness. The talk going into the Kentucky Derby obviously was which Fierceness would we see. We saw the frustrating Fierceness in the Kentucky Derby. How do you view that race?
Well, what makes it even more disappointing is not only did we leave the Florida Derby thinking we had the best 3-year-old. We got to Churchill and he breezed phenomenal. But the one thing that I did notice as we were kind of leading up to the Derby is, and this happens every year, so I shouldn't have been surprised, but the track was different. And I think on Derby Day, it wasn't the same track that he breezed over. It was a more demanding track. And the one thing that he's done in his losses is he hasn't gotten away from the gate well. And he was standing perfectly until right when they kicked it, he just kind of hopped out of there. He did that little bunny hop up instead of forward. And then we wanted to be involved. We wanted to be close. We wanted to, not be in behind a bunch of horses. So Johnny sort of gigged him away from there. And he told me he thought that he lit him up too much, that he just got him on the bridle too much. And I still felt like when he turned down the backside, he was where we wanted to be. It looked like he was in a good rhythm. Johnny's ridden a lot of horses for me over the years, and almost always when he takes a look under his arm, he's loaded. And he did that a couple times down the backside and into the far turn. And so I was still confident at that point until the top of the stretch when the race kind of picked up and he stayed even. So other than a little bit of hop at the start, really no excuse. Came back, we shipped him to Saratoga, and he was a pretty tired horse. He had tucked up a bit from the race and the ship, and it seemed to me pretty early on that the Belmont was just not timing wise wasn't going to work. So I'm glad we passed that. He's rebounded really well. He's been training great, and we feel like he's back in his best form and hopefully going to run to his best.
When you look at the dates of their breezes, you see a lot of you see that Fierceness and Mindframe have worked on the same days quite often. How many times have they actually worked side by side, eye to eye?
I don't recall that I've ever worked them together. I'm afraid to work them together.
So they're the same owner. I could ask you this: if you did work them together, who would win?
I think they would. I think they would both both breeze awfully well. I don't know that would be one that they would end up separating. I would see them staying pretty much head and head the whole way.
There are no winners in the Pletcher barn. They all go head to head. All right, I've got to roll out of here, Todd. I've got one more question for you. Be real. When's he running? Friday or Saturday? And how good is he?
Well, we entered in main track only on Friday, but when we entered back on Saturday, the rules now in New York are once you enter back, you're an automatic scratch out of the MTO. So he'll run on Saturday.
And I know he looked really good in that gate work purely because the other horse didn't break at all. But is he a really good horse? I mean, should I have a little flutter?
I think he's a fast horse. He's pretty aggressive, but he's an atypical Curlin. He's out of the Speightstown mare, and he resembles the Speightstown line a little more to me because he acts pretty quick.
Okay, all right. So that's Saturday, race number 7, a maiden race. I'm writing that down. I unfortunately have to love you and leave you and get out of here and get on another call.
Right. I've got a few more for him, Zoe.
Make sure you ask him about Manana Gold in the Lake George.
Switching to the turf. Okay, all right.
Full to overcharge, the best Louisiana bred we've ever seen. True. So, yeah, the best one you've ever seen in your life. So, yeah, make sure you ask Todd about that one because I've got to go. I'll see you tomorrow, Todd.
All right, have a nice day.
All right, Todd, a few more questions from me. We haven't hit on Tuskin Sky yet. You look at his past performances, 3 sparkling races and then the disappointing race in the Wood Memorial. How confident were you after the Wood Memorial going into the Pegasus at Monmouth?
We really liked the colt, all along. We were disappointed in the Wood, obviously, but we felt like the blinkers on made a difference in his enthusiasm and his work. So we were optimistic, but until we saw it, we were still, wondering a little bit because, like I said, the Wood was not what we were expecting from him. So it's good to see him regroup. And I do think the blinkers had him a little more engaged and focused. And, so it's encouraging that he handled the Monmouth surface well. I think, the race looks better since the second place finisher came back and won the Dwyer since then. Yeah. So, hopefully, this is a race that he can make another move forward in.
On numbers, even off the Pegasus, he stacks up pretty well against the best 3-year-olds, including Mindframe and Fierceness.
Yeah, and that's why we were optimistic going into the Wood, and we kind of he broke his maiden at Aqueduct, and we went to Louisiana in the allowance race, and we sort of trying to figure out which final prep we wanted to end up on, and decided on the Wood, and then didn't work out. So we kind of had to regroup, and hopefully we're back on course now.
All right, we mentioned this at the top. You're a 14 times Saratoga training champion. It's been 3 years, I think, since you won the training title. I know you would like to be the training champion because that means that you've had a fantastic season. But is it something that you think about? Is it something that you keep up with during the course of a meeting?
It depends. For years we did. We were very focused on we want to win the Saratoga training title. And I think kind of as time has evolved and, the stables changed a little bit, like in order to win the training title, you need to, first of all, make a lot of starts, win it a pretty good percentage and be aggressive placing a lot of horses, which we will be. But, I think our stable's sort of not as balanced as it needs to be in order to really compete for a training title. You need a lot of maidens, 3- and 4-year-olds and some claiming horses and things like that. And we're sort of top heavy on maiden 2-year-olds and then some stake horses. So a lot of the middle class horses that you can, that are the ones that win a lot of races, we're kind of lacking. So I don't really look at it at this point. It's like we're in contention for it, but who knows? If we have a surprisingly good meet halfway through, we might look at it a little differently.
All right, you mentioned maiden 2-year-olds. This question's for the bettors out there. I mean, every year you unveil just a series of bears at the Grizzlies, as Kenny McPeak might say, in the 2-year-old ranks. Give us a couple of names of unstarted 2-year-olds that no one's heard of right now that you're really looking forward to big things from at Saratoga when they run in a maiden race?
Well, actually, it's interesting because quite a few of them probably wouldn't even have a name yet. Between the Ripoli organization and St. Elias, they try to wait as long as they can to name them. But so Joey was talking about one that we have in on Saturday, a curling colt named Be Real that I think is pretty quick, but same time kind of not positive that I have as many works into him as I'd like, but he's a pretty forward training colt, and felt like we're getting to that point where we're getting quite a few ready. So I didn't want to hold up too long and need to get them started. And the one thing that our clients are trying to buy are horses with 2-turn pedigrees. So those don't always equate to July, August type of 2-year-olds, but when you think of successful 2-year-olds, you got to be a little bit precocious, and July, beginning of August, still pretty early on the calendar, and a lot of the yearlings that we're purchasing are horses with pedigrees that we're hoping will stretch out to 2 turns. So that doesn't always equate to debut success or first time out. Early 6 furlong types. So, I think we have a solid group, but I think it's a group that's probably going to be coming to hand more towards the latter part of Saratoga than the early part.
Any as yet unnamed horse to watch out for?
I do like a quality road homebred of St. Elias out of America named Sweeter Than Wine that they had. He's been training pretty forwardly. I think we'll see him in his debut probably on January 27th. Have a couple of other, curling colts that I think, a little later down the road could be okay as well.
All right. Todd, I know how busy you are. Thanks so much for taking the time to do this. I think I speak for everybody in the media. You're one of the most accessible to the media of any trainer out there, and the cooperation level is always fantastic, and we really, really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Take care. Good luck. And as this week's Green Group Guest of the Week, Mr. Todd Pletcher will receive a free 1-hour tax consultation. If he needs it, he may already use the Green Group, but he will get a chance to talk for free with Lynn Green and company at the Green Group as a result of being our guest. Green Group, of course, over the years has saved a lot of people in the thoroughbred industry, in particular, money on their taxes. And to find out more about how, Zoe raises her hand, and to find out more about how the Green Group can help you, log on to www.greenco.com.
When it comes to the horse industry, tax laws are complicated and unique. That is why most people overpay on their taxes. Why not get a second opinion from the top-rated accounting and tax firm in the thoroughbred industry? With over 800 clients in the horse business alone, the Green Group has the expertise to save you taxes. There is a reason the most successful owners, breeders, trainers, vets, and horsemen use the Green Group as their tax advisors. We save you taxes. Over the past 40 years, the Green Group founder, Len Green, has owned and bred some of the best racehorses in the history of the sport. His DJ stable competes at the highest level and has received the game's most prestigious honors. Len Green's in-depth, hands-on industry knowledge, combined with current-edge tax-saving strategies, produces positive tax-saving results for clients. Take advantage of this special offer. The Green Group will give you a complimentary and confidential review of your tax return. Contact us at 732-634-5100 or visit our website at www.greenco.com.
Now let's look back a little bit on the major stakes race that we had last weekend, and we previewed it quite extensively. It was the Grade 1 Diana, which of course is for fillies and mares on the turf, and which of course was won again by trainer Chad Brown, who now has won the Diana 9 times, and he's won it 8 of the last 9 years. Spectacular fashion. And this year, the Diana was won by White Beam.
White Beam, back to back.
Going wire to wire, and a good handicapping job. If you watch last week's podcast by Bill Finley, who predicted that White Beam would benefit from a very, very slow pace, controlling the pace. I thought the pace would be slow. I didn't think it would be that slow. And Flavien Prat did a perfect job of getting White Beam to the lead, nursing her on the front end in slow fractions, and had plenty left to outrun an all-star field. But again, Zoe, it's the Chad Brown show in the Diana.
And it's not a surprise, right? He's got all the best turf horses. And when you have all the best turf horses, it's a vicious circle, right? You have all the best turf horses. So people that have the best turf horses are going to send you the best turf horses. And all the owners don't care that they're running against other horses that Chad Brown trains. They don't really care. It is a vicious circle. And Chad Brown is the leader of the turf circle right now. So each year we can look back in 10 years' time and Chad Brown probably will have won the last 20 runnings of the Diana Stakes because he's going to have the best turf horses because everyone with a good turf horse wants to send it to Chad Brown. Now, White Beam is good at Saratoga. She's good on the lead and she's good with Prat. So she makes it back to back for Prat, who I believe is the leading rider right now. He's 2 in front of the Ortiz brothers who are tied. Good to see Jose Ortiz here in Saratoga. He tied for the leading rider with Tyler Gaffalione at Churchill Downs. I spoke to him the other day and I'm like, hey, how's farm life in Kentucky? And he said what a great move it was for him. He loves it. The kids run a riot on the farm. They got a nice farm there close to Louisville and he's really enjoying it, but it's nice to be up here for the summer. So Prat, Ortiz are the names that you're probably going to be hearing an awful lot about. Prat he'd love to be leading rider. I think he'd really like an Eclipse Award a little bit better, but leading rider would be a terrific bonus. I think his agent would like to be leading rider perhaps a little bit more than Flavien.
Well, he's off to a tremendously fast start. He's already won 3 stakes races at Saratoga. He won the Wilton on Misjustified for Todd Pletcher. Then he wins the Diana. And then he was on Quick Call. He was on the Quick Call winner, right? Star of Mystery, the one that was the fastest horse of the week. As far as Chad goes, I mean, we know that he points for Saratoga. I mean, all the trainers do. Todd does too. But Chad Brown has actually run more horses than Todd Pletcher in each of the last 2 meetings for sure. And I think maybe each of the last 3. He was a leading trainer at Saratoga 2 years ago, tied last year with Linda Rice. And he specifically pointed out, as he likes to do, he likes to invoke his former boss, Bobby Frankel. He was very close with Bobby Frankel. And he pointed out after the race on Saturday about how Bobby always pointed for the Diana, always held the Diana in very high regard. So he kind of inherited that sort of mindset. And when you talk about his turf horses and how good he is with turf horses, I mean, right now, Appleby has the leading male turf horses. As good as Chad Brown has been with the turf horses in general, both sexes, really he's dominated even more with the female turf horses than he has with the male. Bricks and Mortar might be an exception. But when you look at the winners that he's had in the Diana, okay, this is a rabbit hole, Zoe.
Okay, I'm ready.
It started with Zagora, who was a champion, who won the Filly and Mare Turf, $2.36 million. Then it was Desita. She was the slacker in the bunch. She only made $1.5 million. She wasn't a champion. Lady Eli was a champion, won the Juvenile Fillies Turf. Sister Charlie won the Diana twice. She was a champion. She won the Filly and Mare Turf. Rushing Fall was a champion. She was second in the Filly and Mare Turf. She won the Juvenile Fillies Turf. An Italian wasn't a champion, but she won 4 Grade 1 races. She was second in the Filly and Mare Turf. And then you have White Beam. That is a hell of a lineup of female turf horses that Chad Brown has rolled out for the Diana over the last decade.
It's an embarrassment of riches. It really is. And not only is he getting the good female turf horses, if you walk down his shed row like I did the other day because I stopped by to see Sierra Leone, he's got plenty of good dirt colts in there as well. Sierra Leone worked solo on his own on the training track and looked really good. So we'll see. You know what he told me about Sierra Leone? He was just talking. He said, never mind his late race antics, what he does. He said he is the smartest horse I've ever been around. He said the morning of the Belmont, he was so sure he was going to win the Belmont. He said, this horse just eats, trains, and sleeps. He said, we had to go wake him up. He eats his food, he lays down. You can't get him up. He said, you can train a horse to do a lot of things, but you can't train a horse to sleep. And that is one of his brilliant traits, is this horse is a sleeper. And if you've been around a lot of good horses, you'll know that horses need rest and they just need to relax and chill out. And if you got one that's laying down the morning of a race, that's a good sign, a really good sign.
So if he's so smart, why doesn't he listen to his rider in the final quarter?
I don't know. I mean, he said aside from that, But I'll tell you one thing, when he worked on his own down the lane, he's straight and true. He doesn't really lug in the mornings. Well, I guess he'll figure it out.
So a little bit later in the podcast here, we'll talk about how well Saratoga has done so far opening week in terms of handle, despite some rain. But first, the TDN Writers Room brought to you by the Pennsylvania Horse Breeders Association. The PHBA has paid awards now to 265 breeders through May 2024. Uptown Charlie Brown stud at the very top of that list, $280,000 in breeders awards. To get involved getting some of that money, you can pick up a PA bred at a public or private sale. You can race at 3 different PA tracks, of course, Pennsylvania. You can race on dirt, you can race on turf, you can go to Presque Isle and race on Torpedo. If you have any questions, you can contact the PHBA directly at 610-444-1050, or you can go to their website, pabred.com.
The PA Horse Breeders Association presents the new and improved Pennsylvania Stallion Series. 6 $100,000 stakes for PA-sired PA breds and parks. 2 6-furlong contests on PA Derby Day. The 2-year-olds then go 7 furlongs on December 30th. The last 2 races are in August 2025 for 3-year-olds. Then $50,000 in breeder bonuses go to the top 3 horses in the series. For more, go to pabred.com.
With some of the fullest fields in the country and quality racing year-round, there's never been a better time to reap the rewards of breeding and racing in Kentucky. Purse money in Kentucky is at an all-time high, as is average purse per race, outpacing California, Florida, and New York. Kentucky breds. Breed them, raise them, race them. We all win.
The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by the Kentucky Thoroughbred Owners and Breeders. This is the KTOB. Where a Group 1 Eclipse Stakes winners bred, I'll tell you why. Kentucky. Of course they are. Congratulations to Kentucky bred City of Troy, who won his 3rd Group 1 Stakes victory last Saturday while winning the historic Eclipse Stakes at Sandown. Maybe not his best effort, but he won in spite of it. That win gives last year's European champion 2-year-old consecutive Group 1 wins this year at 3 after his win in the Betfred Derby at Epsom last time out. He joins an elite group of just 5 horses to win the rare Derby Eclipse Double, or Derby Eclipse Double. I should know how to say that. He's joining Nashwan and Mill Reef. It's Derby, Randy, if you're in England. What's wrong with me? I've been here too long.
All right, we're in the final segment at the 16th poll here of the TDN Writers Room, and we need to talk about Saratoga again, but primarily the business aspect at Saratoga. We had David O'Rourke on last week, of course, who runs NYRA, to talk about Saratoga. And about one of the things he mentioned was about how optimistic he was about the upcoming Saratoga meeting from a business sense, primarily because the weather had to be better than it was in 2023 when they were deluged with rain, and also because of the fan reaction to the historic Belmont Stakes meeting run at Saratoga, where the handle was just like off the charts. Well, even though opening day at Saratoga on Thursday had some races washed off the turf and switched to the main track with shorter fields, all sources handle for the first 4 days of the Saratoga meet $97.4 million. That's an 18% increase over the first 4 days of the 2023 meet. All right. Now, probably rained last year, so you got to take that into consideration. But it's a very encouraging start for Saratoga. And Zoe, it's especially encouraging given the climate right now in American thoroughbred racing, it's an indication that people will respond to the right kind of product.
And yeah, people will respond. It's opening day everywhere. We saw opening day this year, there was a claiming race, and I believe every horse out of that race got claimed out of the race because people are dropping their horses in. They want to win races. It's the same at Del Mar. People don't want to run at Los Al. They're not running the last few days of the Santa Anita meet. They're saving their horses for Del Mar, and people are saving their horses for Saratoga. I mean, if you own horses, which is the best and the worst thing in the world, you want to win at Saratoga. You want to win at Del Mar. You want to bring your friends out and have a good time and have a winner at the premier race meet. So that's basically probably why the handle was down at the spring summer meet. But if the weather stays good here at Saratoga, we'd like it to cool down just a little bit. They're going to set all kinds of records throughout the meet. They really are.
The bettors obviously were saving up their money too. Now, while you were on your continental road trip with Doodle that got interrupted, correct me if I'm wrong, there was no major racing last weekend in Southern California, correct?
No, they were running at Los Al, no major tracks, correct.
And that's probably part of these Saratoga numbers, because this is interesting. On-track betting, was up 2%, 1.9%. On-track attendance, paid admission, was down 1.5%. Okay, so Saratoga was basically treading water, a little bit higher, but then the all sources handle soared. 18.3%, which tells you that the simulcast bettors out there were really pitching it in on Saratoga without any competition, main competition from Southern California. So now with Del Mar opening, you would have to expect, right, that those numbers might kind of come down just a little bit. One more little fun note, a jockey that we have talked about in the past, primarily because of his incredible longevity, Perry Oots, is now 70 years old and just rode a winner. It seems like he celebrates his birthday or thereabouts every year now by riding another winner. Zoe, you could still be out there. You could still be out there on horseback. It's not too late.
Well, I hope you don't think I'm 70.
No, that's what I'm saying. You've got all these years. You've got all these years to go.
Decades. I have decades to go, Randy. And we'll just put that out there. I have a good couple of decades to go until I'm 70. He's won a race a year for the past 52 years. He's won over 7,000 races. And we're not talking about a guy that just gets put on a horse just to win a race each year, right? We're talking about he's won 100 races a year for close to 42 years. Last year, he won 80 races. 2022, he won 93 races. 2021, he won 100 races. He's a septuagenarian, for God's sake, and he's riding the card. It is absolutely amazing. Kudos to Perry Oots, 70 years old.
And Zoe Cadman still has a long way to go before she reaches that milestone. I apologize for my insensitivity in not considering that you might actually think that that's what I had in mind. All right. Now I think you've got something called the XBTV Workout of the Week. I wonder who that would be.
Well, I mean, there's really only one horse to talk about. We could be talking about Dornoch, but we are not. We are going to talk about Fierceness. And Fierceness is here on the outside. He worked 5 furlongs in 1:47 on Saturday, on July the 13th at Saratoga, in preparation for the July 20th Haskell at Monmouth Park. That's him on the outside, under Danny Wright, who gets on him every single day. It's his favorite horse ever. Fierceness has been unraced since his 15th place finish as the favorite in the Kentucky Derby, and this was his 5th work back.
Be a smarter better with XBTV. The best horses. With thousands of exclusive morning workouts. All at your fingertips and delivered right into your inbox. Everything you need to be informed. Be smart. Bet smart with XBTV.
all the thrills. Fraction of the bills. Experience the power of the partnership. Change your life, make new friends, and compete at the highest level of thoroughbred racing. West Point Thoroughbreds, the gold standard in racing partnerships. Visit westpointtb.com.
The TDN Writers Room also brought to you by our good friends at West Point Thoroughbreds, back in the winner's circle again in the Million Preview Stakes at Colonial Downs last Saturday. Now, you read between the lines here. The race was won by West Point's Integration. It was only a 3-horse field. It scratched down to a 3-horse field. Integration was 1-20 in that race, but he delivered. He delivered by winning impressively, winning easily. And that was Integration's prep, as the name would suggest, for the Grade 1 Arlington Million Stakes, which will be run at Colonial Downs on August the 10th. And the next day, Sunday at Saratoga, another 4-year-old from the Shook McGahee barn. This one named Battle of Normandy, who took his second win in a row. It's one of Flavien Prat's 7 wins so far at Saratoga. This weekend, West Point will be in on the fun at Del Mar. Good for Terry Finley. Be out there for opening day, Terry. Scatify will run in the Oceanside Stakes on opening day. Yet another stakes horse for West Point. To learn more about how you can get in on this action, you can go to westpointtb.com. So that's it. Without Bill Finley, it's another edition of the TDN Writers Room presented by Keeneland. Zoe, thanks for carrying the ball here on this particular podcast. Also, thank you to Todd Pletcher, our Green Group Guest of the Week, as well as those behind the scenes, Katie Petruniak, Anthony LaRocca, Aaliyah LaRocca, all those people that put this together every week. Zoe, what are you going to do without a car? You just bought a new car, right?
I just bought a new car, but because I live in California, apparently it's going to take a week to get it registered because it's California, and then it has to be smogged, which they don't do in New York. So it's just a pain in the ass.
So what are you Ubering right now at Saratoga?
I'll get over it. I'm still renting a car, which isn't the cheapest thing to do either. I'll get over it. It's fine. I'm going to go down to the lake later. It's a beautiful day in Saratoga. Life is good, and I'm glad to be here. Oh, one more thing. Big congrats to Sue Finley. I guess she's a pickleball champ. Did you know that?
Oh, I did not know that. I've always wanted to play pickleball. I never have had a chance to do it. I'm going to take lessons. I'm going to get involved. Sounds
Sue
like
can teach you.
All right.
She's a pickleball star.
So thanks for clicking on the TDN Writers Room. Join us next week for more on the latest adventures of Zoe Cadman. What is she driving? How is she driving it? How is she getting there? How is Doodle? Thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.